Hey everybody, it's Emily, the Crazy Worm Lady. I wanted to peek in and see how my bait trap was doing inside my worm factory, and I'm considering adding a new tray today. So let's get this open and we will take a peek. Springtails are all over this lid. Okay. So, the trap wasn't as successful as I thought or I hoped. Tom from the Vermibag tutorials did mention that they tend to work on the one type of springtails that jump a little bit more. But since these guys aren't really the jumpers, it might not work as well, and it really is not working as well as it has in his experiments. So the wet cardboard is a hit though. So I'm probably just going to pop this out of the bin completely and just chalk that up to an experiment. But here's the other piece of cardboard that's in here that's just wet down real well. And there's quite a good number of them on there. Let me take these pieces of cardboard out and we'll dig around a little bit. Okay, so as you can see, the top of this bin is just crawling with those springtails. I'm wondering if maybe I need to add a little bit of garden lime, if maybe it's a little acidic, because some people have suggested that the springtails prefer a more acidic environment. So I might do that today, because just look at those numbers of springtails, guys. The worms, though, seem to be doing just fine. There's actually a good number of even juvenile worms in here and red mites, but none of those guys are harmful in the bins. And I want to clarify, I'm not trying to bait these out because I think they're a problem. It's just more that I feel like their numbers are getting so high, and I completely understand and appreciate the ecosystem of the worm bin, but just when we have numbers of mites and springtails like this, it just seems a little bit ridiculous. So along the way here, I'm just kind of experimenting to see what I can learn. But even if the springtails stay, it's not a problem for me. I'll deal with it. It's not hurting the worms. But it looks like some of the food that we fed is just about gone, because we fed down here. Let's see if I can pull some of this up. And I do have a number of paper towels and things like that in here, and they take a little bit longer to break down. But all of the food, except for a little bit of onion, it looks like, is just about gone. And actually, it's funny because I was thinking this tray was a bit too moist, but down here it still looks like a lot of the coconut core and really not all that much casting. So I'm just thinking that they might not be moving up quite as much because there's so much cardboard and egg crates and all of that that's kind of smothering them out. So I'm going to turn off the camera for a second. I'm going to break up a lot of these pieces of cardboard and egg crates, and maybe we will just dump a whole bunch of garden lime in here and add a new tray and just kind of start fresh on the level above and see what happens with that. So bear with me just a second and I'll be back with you guys to show you what we're going to do. So I turned this layer up completely, and I peeled all of the paper towels and the egg crates apart because I think that will help aerate this layer a little bit better. It is dry. I'm going to have to add moisture to it today, but I think that will make sure that it doesn't get sour up here. And we definitely don't want to do anything that's going to harm our worms. So I am going to grab my bag of lime here. Okay, hold on one second while I get the lime. So I just added close to maybe 3/4 of a cup or maybe even a cup of garden lime in here. And it's the organic stuff. It's safe for the worm bins. I've used it in my bins before. And I'm just going to mix this in real well. Got some guys a little upset about that. But I want to just make sure that maybe if everything's a little bit acidic, that might help. So I'm going to take a peek in the layer below, and then we're going to start a tray on top of this, so we can just let this layer finish up, and hopefully with adding some lime we won't have as many problems with the pH. So just for reference, this is what your layers should look like. There's definitely some springtails down here, but not quite in the abundance we have in the trays above. And it's a little compacted, but that always happens because of the weight of the layers above it. But all of the food in this bin looks processed. There's a little bit of bedding left, but I bet if I leave this another few weeks, this layer will be ready to harvest. So I'm just going to turn this up a little bit, but I'm pleased with how this layer looks. I'm not overly concerned about the springtails. It's really in that top layer where we have all of our food that they're in such abundance. So just for fun, we'll look at the layers below this one as well, just to have a good time. So the layer immediately beneath the one we just looked at was much of the same. This is the very bottom layer, and you can see how compacted it is. You can see all of the imprints from the grates where they climb up. And this is a little bit wetter than I would like for harvesting purposes. And actually, I find if I occasionally do this and turn up these lower layers, it starts to dry out a little bit more, probably because it can breathe and it's not so compact. But all in all, this is looking nice, and I definitely think I will be able to get some harvesting done soon. But I just wanted to peek down here because I haven't done it in a while for you guys, and I was curious, especially with the springtails and all, if it was affecting anything. But as always, I don't have all my worms moving up, but I don't mind sifting them so much. So let's start a new tray. Alright, so I just popped a new tray here on top of the existing tray, and I actually dumped a little bit more garden lime through these grates so that the moisture that'll seep through hopefully will help neutralize our pH. So I'm going to load this layer down with some of the end of this coconut core I'm trying to get rid of, and then we'll give a little bit of a feeding. Alright, I added about 1 inch of coconut core. I loosely moistened it down, but the food I'm adding is very moisture rich, so I didn't want to overdo it. So this has been watered down. And then I have this nice big bag with a very odd variety of foods that I've been collecting on my counter. There's citrus in here, but I'm finding that citrus is fine in my bins. I also have a whole banana, have some rose petals, tea bags, looks like a little bit of ginger or something as well. I'm going to bust this open so they can get into it. But you see all these tea bags. So, seems like an odd array, but we'll see how they like it. They'll definitely come up here, I think, because of the banana, if nothing else. Although, citrus has been a hit lately. This is a huge piece of lemon. I'll be interested to see how long this takes, this lemon and this orange were not frozen first. Lately I've been freezing the citrus and it's been breaking down relatively quickly, but since this was not frozen, I was collecting on my counter, I'm not so sure. But I also have this huge thing full of used coffee grounds that I've been collecting for a while. And it's already growing some mold. And I'm going to add a whole bunch of this as well. People are confused sometimes and think that coffee grounds are acidic. They could be possibly mildly acidic, but once that hot water runs through the coffee itself is acidic, but the grounds kind of lose their acidity in that process. So I'm not worried about the acidity too much. Although used coffee grounds, because they're real moist, sometimes do get the Springtails, but at this point I feel like that's a losing battle and I'm just going to kind of give up on it. So that's quite a heavy feeding. I'm going to take some of this garden lime, sprinkle this over the top, see if this can help control our pH. So again, the garden lime needs to be kind of watered in. So I'm going to cover this with some bedding and water it down. So bear with me a moment. So there's a good amount of extra bedding added in there now. And I am going to water this down because we know coconut coir is incredibly absorbent. So we need to wet it some, as well as for that garden lime to work, it needs to be able to leach into the bedding. And it can't do that if it's not moist. So as you can see, I'm adding a very healthy amount of water, but I guarantee you this coconut coir will absorb it. This stuff expands. If you've ever seen a coconut coir brick, it expands, I mean, astronomically. I put a brick once in a 10-gallon tote to reconstitute, and I dumped gallons and gallons and gallons of water, and it actually overflowed out of my 10-gallon, and that's how I ended up with this. I don't even know how many gallons this tote is, but it's got to be 40 gallons or more, and it was filled to the brim, and that is why I have so much leftover coconut coir. But that's going to be our update for today. I know it was a little bit lengthy, but I wanted to add this new tray today and kind of talk about my failure with trying to bait out the Springtails, but everything seems to be going well. Over here has all of our food, so hopefully by next week they will have moved up to this tray, and we'll see if the garden lime had any effect on the Springtails. So drop your comments below, like this video, and subscribe if you'd like some more content from me, and I will talk to you guys real soon.